please welcome with us Mr. Daniel Graves from Aesthetic Perfection. Hello, Daniel.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much for having me.
I see I can hear you, but I have a little issue with my monitoring. Give me a second. Okay, now I can hear you.
Now you can hear me.
Yes.
All right. Great. Well, I just said thank you so much for having me. It is a pleasure to be here.
Happy that you took the time for that.
My pleasure.
So, Daniel, how's things wherever you're living?
Wherever I'm living. I'm actually living on the Austrian countryside in a tiny little village outside of Linz. So it's a bit winter wonderland here at the moment. We've got some fresh snow, nice forests around. I can't complain.
I'm really envious, to be honest. Yeah, we're sending here from Nuremberg, where we've met the last time in der Kult.
Yeah,
and, yeah. Here it's only rainy and gray.
Yeah. I mean, we had rainy and gray throughout the whole holiday season. We were pretty disappointed not to get any snow at all, on Christmas and New Year's, the times when you really want it. And then, of course, now that the holidays are over, it started snowing. And while it is quite beautiful, I'm from California, so I'm not really well adjusted to the cold weather. So I'm kind of just waiting for spring to return.
I get that so much. Even if I have to say that I'm a person who's always too warm, and I'm really happy that it's not that hot currently, because we're living in a building from 1682, I guess. So as soon as the sun hits, the studio heats up. You cannot imagine.
Yeah. Well, I lived in an apartment in California that was not from the 1600s, but it was from the 1960s, and it had terrible insulation. And whenever it would be around noon, the sun would just be directly over the roof, and the whole place would turn into an oven. So I think I have an idea of what it's like for you there.
Yeah, I think so. We even had to act active cooling to our camera in the summer, because the camera was complaining about heat issues.
Oh wow.
So it was really baking in here. Okay, let's kick it off with the elephant in the room. How are you doing with the complete COVID madness going on?
I mean, I like to refer to myself as a pessimistic optimist, or maybe say that I'm pretty optimistic for a pessimist. I did my best to take this whole sort of situation in stride, and I think, as a lot of people who are familiar with Aesthetic Perfection already know, I set out to do this one song a month project last year to keep myself busy, to keep myself from going stir crazy, to give myself a goal to work towards. I think maybe the first year of the pandemic was a lot tougher on me, because I just didn't have a focus, right? I didn't have a goal to keep me getting out of bed every day. And so when all the other things that are important to you in your life are taken away, like visiting friends, going to restaurants, traveling, whatever, you really need that goal. So I think this project that I did, while it was incredibly, it was very difficult, and I think probably led to some level of burnout on my end. I still think that it was absolutely the thing I needed to do in order to stay sane in this crazy time that we're in.
Yeah, totally relatable. And I guess many of us can feel that struggle to get something to drive you out of bed every day, besides going to work or something, if you're lucky enough that your job is still going on.
Yeah.
But happy to hear you got through this good until this point at least.
Yeah.
And so everybody around you, I hope, is safe and healthy and so on.
Well, everybody around me has already gotten COVID. We had that actually
Wow.
in November of last year. So I don't live like with family, but I live on a large piece of property that is shared with other family members, and we were doing our best, to stay within our little our bubble, right? And somehow it still made its way in last November, and yeah, so we already went through that, and thank God, everybody seems to have recovered fully. And then, now that we have the vaccines and all that, I think it's a little bit more, you know, it's less worrying. I think that's the way to put it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, most of my team from my day job is working in Vienna. So
Hmm.
I had a lot about the numbers going up in Austria and the end of the year, and it was so crazy and it was so scary for all of them. So I'm
Hmm.
happy that you and your family found a way to deal with it, and that nobody really had a severe going of the sickness.
Yeah, we were all quite lucky, and I think part of what made sort of the isolation bearable was the fact that we all had each other. It's not just me alone here or me alone with my wife. We have a larger extended family, which counts as part of our bubble, and made it possible for us to do things that we called them Corona dinners every Friday, where we would like travel to a different part of the world, like so like Italy or Japan or something, and we'd just try to cook. You know different types of ethnic cuisine, so that we felt like we were traveling or doing something. So it's these types of things that help keep you sane. But I also realized how incredibly lucky I was to be where I'm at in this situation, because I moved back here, or I moved to Austria 6 months before the pandemic hit. So I
Wow.
can only imagine like what it would have been like to be in my small one-bedroom apartment in the metropolis of LA, as opposed to being on this tiny farmhouse on a giant piece of land in the middle of nowhere with forests and hiking trails and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. And I mean, same over here. We were so lucky that we had the chance to set up this studio and somehow get ourselves entertained during all of this craziness.
Yep.
So I've seen that there are some concerts upcoming in April, I guess, of Aesthetic
Y-
Perfection. Did you have any word if they will happen? I know
Uh,
nobody can say anything sure right now.
I am. I was under the impression that the April shows had already been pushed. I know
Ah,
that we're trying to do May, but I think basically sort of the real problem is that we just don't really know what is going to be allowed and when, and also how to sort of navigate the complexities of you know um, a variant that can evade vaccines, right?
mm-hmm.
So you're talking about going on tour, right? Playing a number of shows in a row. There's a lot of money invested in these things. You're talking about bringing people from an international crew, that type of thing. Uh, the fact that it seems that Omicron can escape pretty much vaccinations. Obviously, you're still protected from severe illness, but if somebody in the crew gets sick, your show gets canceled. Now, what do you do when you have 10 or 15 people who have been brought from all corners of the globe in order to do this tour? It could be an absolute financial catastrophe. So I think it was sort of the unsure, uh, let's say that the fact that it is we still don't know what the rules are going to look like in in April, and the fact that, we're dealing with almost a certainty that somebody will get sick. And we're like, how do we navigate this situation, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, seeing it from the DJ perspective, with being active across all Europe, basically, it's totally the same, because most of the bookings until March are cancelled anyways. But we'll see, and I'm really, really sad for the venue owners and so on, because we as DJs, we can be flexible, but I do not need to get to have the place running without people in it.
Right. And that's why, I even though this situation has been, difficult for me, I still try to keep in mind what it's like for people who are unable to, still work through this pandemic, because, I can still make music, I can still engage with my audience, but what about, like you said, the venues? What about the lighting engineers and the sound engineers, and
Exactly.
these are the people that really can't do anything at all. So I try to recognize how lucky I am to be in the situation that I am.
Yeah, I think that's the only way that you can go.
Yep.
But talking about the audience and reaching out to the people and so on, did you get any word of the streaming thing going on Twitch or on YouTube regarding the goth scene? Or did this completely pass you?
This completely passed me by. I I've been trying to kind of understand all the sort of newer platforms that people have been utilizing, especially during the pandemic. So Twitch and TikTok and all that kind of stuff. But there are only so many hours in a day, so I did miss that.
Okay. So, well, basically, just getting you to this a little, at least, if you're interested.
Yeah, absolutely.
We discovered the dark scene, or the gothic scene, was one of two scenes on the planet, the goth scene and the techno electronic music scene, that made that transition to the digital world successfully. And it's so crazy seeing what happened on this platform, because on a regular Saturday night, I see 25 to 30 DJ streams only playing dark music on this platform. And yeah, it's really great getting to know other artists, building friends around the globe, and it was, I think, a good thing for us as creators. And we've been told by the audience many, many times that they are so happy to have a place to go to and to look at something. And I think it's quite similar to what you are doing with your YouTube streams. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I I I think it's really a testament to how supportive our scene can be, and I think also, you know, there it 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 is obvious that this scene sort of has let's say a history of like embracing new technology and that type of thing. So I think we're sort of predestined to adapt maybe better than other scenes, which seems unfair, but I do think that it really does show how tight knit and supportive this community is, and even though I didn't know about this, I'm in no way surprised, but it makes me incredibly happy to hear.
yeah, happy to share this with you a little, at least. I do not want to annoy
Yeah.
or something, but it's been such a large impact on my life in the last 21 months. So I wanted to get you to why we are here and why we are doing this right now.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
sorry.
no, I was just gonna say it's not annoying at all. Like, who is gonna be annoyed to hear good news, right? Like, good news is so rare at this moment in time.
True.
I think good news is always welcome.
Yeah, I can only completely agree with you. Okay, so you've been doing the 12 months, 12 song thing with Perfection. What was the reason to do this? What made you do this? Was this just something for the pandemic to keep you going, or is there a master plan?
I think I think I'm a little bit too stupid and too short-sighted to put together a master plan. But I think it's partly because I've been seeing the trend of physical media disappearing from the equation, and the the um, the public shift to the digital streaming domain. You start realizing, even pre-pandemic, like looking around and seeing my friends releasing full-length albums that are essentially forgotten by the time the timeline refreshes, which seems to be 3 to 4 weeks. And that's a pity, because you think, it can take years to craft an entire record. But the world is moving so fast that I don't want to say people don't care, but they just don't have the time or the attention span, and the algorithm, the way that social media is set up either by design or just that's how it is. It doesn't allow you to keep talking about the same thing for too long. So I already started seeing this trend, and I heard about a rapper from Atlanta, and I don't know why his name is escaping me right now, because he deserves the credit for this idea of mine, because it's not my idea. But he pre-pandemic, he wrote and released a song every month for a year, and then I think at some point he actually did it once a week, which is like
Wow.
way beyond my sort of skill set. But seeing that how he did that, and the way that his audience was so active and engaged, and the way that they were looking forward to all these new releases, I thought, I'm a solo project like this guy. Like, I don't need a studio. I don't need to consult with other band members or deal with their schedules or timelines or anything. So I have the ability to do this. And it seemed like the perfect time to embark on an adventure like that, because obviously I wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And 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 touring and live concerts is usually the way that you stay sort of deeply connected to your audience. Obviously, social media is a part of that, but really, getting out there in front of them, meeting them face to face, shaking hands, kissing babies, all that kind of stuff. Um, that's what you do when you're on tour, and when you aren't able to do that, I think you start to drift apart. And I really didn't want to drift apart from my audience, because like you were saying, what's happening on Twitch with the DJs and their audiences, I felt like it was important for me to connect with my audience in this way, where it's like, look, I need something in this moment. I need a goal. And you guys also need something to stay connected with, something to look forward to. It just seemed like a perfect answer to an imperfect situation.
Yeah, sounds quite relatable. And are you happy with the outcome in total? Do you think there are any downs to releasing a song each month?
I think that it really, really, from a strictly business point of view, it was great for the algorithm. It was also great for the Spotify algorithm, right? Because you get rewarded the more you release stuff. I
Hmm.
mean, this is kind of how it works. But I think that the problem is that the music industry still moves slow. So, if you want to get a story in a magazine, or, you want like a large outlet to cover your release, you need to have all of your sort of promotional plans set in stone 3 months in advance. I was not able to do that because sometimes I'm finishing the songs 4 days before the deadline, right? You need the streaming services require 4 weeks, to ensure that your song gets released on its release date. So I was often, on the final day saying like, okay, God, let's upload this. And so that really hurt me in terms of being able to promote my music in the
So
regular
nun bin
way.
ich mit dem Zählen dran.
So it
Eins,
was it
zwei,
was it was great in a lot of ways, but I learned a lot about how the industry works in other ways. So I
sieben,
think moving
sieben
forward, I'm
flatternde
going to try and
Fledermäuse.
combine everything that I learned over the course of this year to
Oh, wundervoll.
make even more impactful releases.
Yeah, I get that, I think. And yeah, I think it was a really, really great journey going through that year to see even the different genres of music that you covered with this album, to put it like that.
Yeah.
And well, before we get to another topic, there was a rumor I was getting word from that you talked about this last song, Save Myself, that was even in our top 2021 charts voted by the community, might eventually be the last track of Aesthetic Perfection.
Well, actually, the last song that I released in the year was "Lonesome Ghost." That was the single for December. "Save Myself" was the November track.
Sorry.
No, it's the world is busy. I don't expect people to remember every single thing that I do and which order I do it. Sometimes I can't even remember. So, I think when this project was finished, I felt emotionally and just creatively drained, and I wasn't sure what I had left to say with Aesthetic Perfection because as you said, I experimented with so many different genres. I just did so many different things in this year. I would sit down at my computer or with my guitar and I would attempt to write something and I would be like, I've done this, or I have no interest in writing right now. But it seems to have very quickly kind of the clouds passed and I got a little bit more clarity on who I am as an artist and where I want to go. I wasn't sure. Maybe I wanted to start a new band and write with other people. But I mean, I think at the end of the day, like Aesthetic Perfection is just the name that I release the songs that I write under, right? So there's no point in creating a new band if I'm just going to keep writing songs that, writing Daniel Graves songs.
Okay, so I'm happy to hear that we can expect more Aesthetic Perfection in the future, because not only myself, but many of the people in the chat right now, wow, 230 people to put that out, are craving for your songs and are big fans. And I can tell you always when I play some Aesthetic Perfection, the chat explodes. I mean, depends on the song, but happens. I think I'm not the only one to be relieved to hear that.
It's I think one of the biggest problems with being so honest with your audience is that sometimes you really are just speaking from what you're feeling in that moment, and you never stop to think about how those words are going to be like picked up and carried and interpreted and all that kind of stuff. When often you just feel like you're yelling into the void. Sometimes you're like, I'm frustrated. I'm just going to say this thing on the internet, and then it comes out, and then everybody wants to think that that's your life path. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you guys. I was just very stressed and tired.
I think it's totally fine. We're only human after all, right?
Yeah.
But knowing that feeling of shouting into the void,
Right.
sitting here talking to basically this black hole of the camera over there each and every single week, I know that feeling. I know that feeling
Yeah.
so well. Okay, as you might see, we have a cat down here, and we have two cats always appearing on screen, my two cats that are living with me. And I got word that you are a cat lover as well.
The word you received is 100% correct. Yes.
What kind of a cat do you have?
So, I never really thought too much about breeds or anything like that, but my wife's job got her one of those DNA tests for cats. So it's like 23andMe, but you do it on your cat.
Okay.
And so we did that. We did that a couple of years ago, and it came back that she is like almost entirely a Norwegian forest cat. And I didn't really know what that was until I got the DNA results. But now it's become like my favorite kind of cat.
Yeah, and they are one of the biggest breeds available, I guess.
I guess I didn't realize that because we got her in California, and maybe they're more popular here because I feel like a lot of the cats that we see here, that are actually in the forest, they look a lot like my cat. But in LA, it was mostly just like American short hairs, right? And they're just kind of a mixture of everything, and you don't even know what kind of cat it is. But yeah, our cat Mara, she's very distinctive looking, and she is very much Norwegian forest cat.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. When it comes to the dark scene, there are a few bands that are always recognizable by their sound. And especially in the dark electronic music, without too much distortion on the voice at least, it always comes to mind that one, aesthetic perfection, second, fade ahead. Did you hear that often? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I've not heard that specific idea before, but I think it's correct in the sense that Sammy and I both are well aware of how important a voice is to the identity of a band. And I grew up on pop music, so this is what my mom was listening to on the radio like all the time, and it was the second a word came out of somebody's mouth, it's like, oh, that's Madonna, oh, that's Michael Jackson, oh, so it's like you know these voices immediately, and I've just been drawn to that ever since. And as much as I love like the dark scene, I do think that it is a pity that a lot of artists want to erase their personality, or erase the personality of their most personal instrument. So I think effects are cool. I think that they're useful from time to time, but I also think that the human voice is the most intimate, expressive, and unique instrument that exists, and that we should maybe embrace that a little bit more.
I agree. I mean, talking about what you can do with the voice, if you listen to, for example, The Who from Mongolia. I don't know if you know that band.
The Who from Mongolia.
The Who, spelled H-U.
Ah, okay. So I was thinking The Who, like the British rock band. Okay.
No.
No, I'm not familiar with them.
Okay, they are mixing up rock music with Mongolian throat singing.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And this is so crazy sound-wise because it's unique.
And that's so awesome.
Yeah, because it's so rare to find something that stands out and finds its way into the public. I
Yeah.
mean, we are a subculture for no reason. Okay, thinking about artists and the kind of sound you're doing, you released that industrial pop video on YouTube a few months back or a year back or something. And I think many of the people in the chat right now should be aware of that video. But even if not, do you want to talk a little about that issue?
I mean, I certainly can. It is a personal passion of mine. I think a lot of people didn't really sort of understand what the industrial pop philosophy was really about, and so I wanted to make a video that kind of like surmised all the different elements that coalesce into this philosophy that I have. It's something that has changed a lot over the years, something I've tried to refine, something I've tried to think about as an evolving thing, and not something that just is this way. But I think just in general, the way to look at it is that, or the way that I look at industrial music is that we've kind of lost our way, in the sense that the scene started as, let's say, a bastion for the outcasts and the misfits. It was supposed to be a place of refuge where you could experiment and try different things and, really be yourself. And, over the years, it's evolved into this thing where it's like you're just essentially wearing a costume, and trying to tick all of the boxes that, I don't know who's making these rules, but you're trying to fit into a specific box. And it frustrated me for a very long time, because I came into this scene because it gave me something different, and it had a lot of bands that sounded completely different from one another. Artists like My Life with the Thrill Cult and Ministry and Nine Inch Nails and Skinny Puppy, and all these bands that never sounded alike, and constantly changed and tried to push their own envelope and redefine what industrial music or dark music was going to be. But I think in the last 20 years, it's sort of just gotten more and more boring. I don't know if that's the right word. I just feel like there's a lot less risk. People take a lot less risk.
Before the pandemic hit, I'd completely agree.
Yeah. And so the whole idea of industrial pop was to kind of take elements from pop music and sort of inject them into our thing in a way that felt different from, like, bands who are trying to sound like Nine Inch Nails or Depeche Mode. I'm trying to use contemporary pop production techniques like, Justin Bieber and Taylor Swift and all of that kind of stuff. And the fact that it pisses people off, in my head, shows that I'm doing something right, because if you look at the manifesto of, Throbbing Gristle, the band that invented industrial music, it was about always pushing the envelope, never sticking to any sound and or look, and just constantly trying to reinvent yourself and the genre of music that you're in.
Okay. Yeah, I'd completely agree. Even in my personal view, after the pandemic hit, at least in our feeling as DJs, with the freedom no longer having to serve to a dance floor to keep going, we've discovered so much new music and so many great artists. And Bandcamp has become my second home, basically. And with the big, or at least the feeling of the rise of the post-punk again, and the new more electronic versions of post-punk, I think there is finally some movement again.
I would agree. I'm not personally into all of the nostalgia genres, right? Like I understand why at this moment in time everybody is drawn to the sort of retro sound, trying to recapture the past. Like I understand that, and it's not that I don't like listen to synthwave, and there's a lot of great retro industrial bands. Like it's not that I dislike them, but I feel like from a purely artistic point of view that we should be trying to forge new paths instead of going back to the ones that we've already walked on. Now, I think what's really interesting is what the French producers are doing, especially the French like synthwave producers. They're starting, to create something entirely different out of this. This dark synth stuff. Bands like Sierra and why I can't ever pronounce it, but it's like Moon Exis. Like these bands that kind of started maybe in a more synthwave thing, but now they've just branched into a whole new world of like dark dance music, and I think it is great. It is so exciting. It's so fun. So I definitely see progress happening, and I think that the pandemic helped speed it up, and I think that like you said, DJs not sort of being beholden to a dance floor made it much more possible to take risks with what you're playing.
Yeah, absolutely. There was actually a question, or there are two questions coming in from the chat that I would like to put into this right now. The first one is a little funny one, but who cares? It's from Waiting for Darkness. Hello, Daniel. If a fairy would grant you a wish today, what would you wish for?
I would wish to stop wishing for things and to be happy with what I have.
Clever. Very clever. But this is coming from the man who made the song Never Enough, right?
Yeah, but that's the problem. I'm aware of the fact that I'm constantly wanting more and that things are never enough. And at least now I'm better at being able to take a moment and say, no, this is enough. Look how lucky you are to be in this position that you're at. So I've learned to appreciate things so much more than I did 7 years ago when I wrote that song. But it's still wired into my brain, and it's a constant battle to stop it. So if I could wish it away, I totally would. But maybe it would kill my ambition. Maybe I'd never write a song again. Maybe like, it's enough. I'm just going to play video games all day. I don't know.
So I maybe wish you don't make that. You don't meet that fairy. Okay, the other question is coming in from Slither3808. Matt Hart and I loved hosting the 2 industrial pop stream festivals, and that were bridged to a gap from the festival. And thanks for joining us in the chat, Daniel. Do you have a plan to go forward with the festival at some stage?
Yeah, so we've already rescheduled that for next year. Yeah, like I was just saying with my shows in April, the sort of travel restrictions and the sort of looming threat of Omicron basically saying that, even though you're vaccinated, even if you can have an event, if one of you guys gets sick, it's done. And I think a festival where you're talking about like, it's not even just your touring party, you're bringing in multiple bands from multiple countries. It's just a recipe for disaster. So we wanna make sure that we do this and we do it right, because I've been talking about making an industrial pop festival for, I want to say like 8 years. Like I've been really pushing for this, and I tried to get all the different festivals in Germany to give me a stage. I was like, come on, give me a stage. Let me bring my friends over, and nobody wanted me to do it. So I was like, all right, fine, I'll do my own festival. And it's a really important step in my career for me. So we're gonna do it. We're gonna make it happen. We've already sort of informed the bands, like, hey guys, can you make sure that you're free next year for this? And they all said yes. So it's gonna happen. I promise.
Okay, so you've heard it here first. Actually, there are now coming in more questions. For example, Akko Loburn. Can you ask how important live gigs are for him, even under some regulations like wearing masks or proof of vaccination, especially financially wise? Because there are movements calling to boycott those gigs until all can go or no, not only part of the fans. And I know it's a hard topic, and basically we covered most of that question already. But I'm just a servant to
Yeah.
the community.
I think that there is not a perfect answer. I think that is really the unfortunate reality of the world that we live in right now. I think everybody's just trying to do their best. And I think when the time comes for me to have to make these difficult decisions, because I have no doubt in my mind that I will be presented with them at some point, I'm I'm going to struggle, and I'm going to try to talk to all of you guys, talk to the community, figure out a way forward in this, because I don't pretend to have all the answers. I don't pretend to know exactly what the right course of action is. I wouldn't be so arrogant to do that. So I think it's a discussion. It's an evolving discussion, and I think that it's something that we all need to have with one another, and have that discussion, when we have more of an understanding of what the restrictions will be when these things take place, right? So I can't say what things are going to look like in 6 months, but when we're 3-4 weeks ahead of a gig, then we can have that conversation.
Okay, thank you for that. And the chat is always responding to your answers with, wow, wise words. Thank you so much. And I can only agree. Thank you for being so thoughtful and kind, and not hating against everything right now like many other people are doing at the moment. Thank you for that. Let's talk about a little lighter question right now. Mi Mogwai, Daniel, what is one of your favorite things to do other than making music in your off time?
I don't actually have like hobbies. I don't I don't I don't know, like I think maybe it would be good for me to have a hobby, because it might give me something else to focus on that isn't music. And I realize that probably thinking about music 24 hours a day is not particularly healthy, but it's kind of what I do. So I actually try to do stuff like hang out with friends, go to fancy restaurants. My wife and I really like traveling. Those are the things that I do to get away from music. But even then, like it'll be in the back of my mind, like, hey, what about this kind of chord progression? Hey, have you thought about this kind of chord? And you're just like, ugh. And sometimes I'll just be sitting there staring off into space, like during dinner or something, not at my phone, just staring into space. And my wife's like, you're thinking about music, aren't you? And I'm like, whoa, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so you're totally addicted.
It's a problem. So I'm working on it.
Thank you for being so honest. Getting back into the industrial bass issue, did you have any great artist discoveries in 2021 you might want to share maybe?
Well, I try to put as many of the new discoveries that I find like into my This Is Industrial Pop playlist on Spotify, because there really are a lot of great new bands, and I mentioned a couple of them. I mean, I know like Sierra and Mon Exis, they're not like new discoveries of me in 2021, but they're quite recent discoveries. Really big fan of Morris Black, obviously, who I did the song Betrayer with. Owl Vision is great, although he's also not particularly new. I just Mateo Tura, who just did an EP with Sierra. Yeah, all of that kind of stuff. I put a lot of them into my This Is Industrial Pop playlist. Josie Pace is awesome. Yeah, there's so much great music coming out, and I think that you really hit the nail on the head that like during the pandemic, people's minds have opened a little bit more. And I think that also what's sort of happening with the younger generation with hyperpop and all that kind of stuff, the kids of today don't really care about genre. They just care if it's good and interesting.
Yes.
And I think that that's even sort of spilling over to us older folks.
Yeah, correct. And this is actually going back to the streaming services you've been talking about earlier. I wanted to ask you if you feel that maybe today, with all the streaming services and time for everybody getting shorter and shorter and shorter, do you think albums are gone? Or is it still something really relevant?
You know, as somebody who grew up in the 80s and 90s and loves albums, still goes back and listens to his favorite albums from that time, like I I would love to see albums be a part of this new musical landscape. I'm not entirely convinced that it is, but that doesn't mean it's not worth trying. I did this project this year, and I'm going to be releasing those 12 songs as a compilation album that's going to come out, I think in the first half of next year. And we'll see if people are still interested in that. We'll see if people are going to even care because, hey, those songs are already out. Why would I want that on an album? But the flip side to that is when you release an album that contains a bunch of songs that nobody's ever heard, they're only going to skip through one or two of them and then be like, "Ah, heard it." So you're playing a very you're not playing a dangerous game, but there's a lot of risk involved with making an album because, like we said, you're talking 1-2 years of somebody's life, and then just for somebody to skip through the first 20 seconds of every song and be like, "Heard it." I wonder if there's a better way. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good question, and this perfectly fits with my next question. And do you think that the streaming services like Spotify, Tidal, and so on extended the influence for more unknown artists, like basically many of what I'm listening to, or you're doing at least, are compared to a Justin Bieber or something?
I mean, look, it's not perfect, and I think that a lot of people would like to believe that there is some sort of future that we can reach where artists are compensated fairly and are promoted fairly and all that kind of stuff. And I think that would be great, and I think that this is something that we need to fight for. However, it is worth taking a moment to look around and realize that this right now, even though it's not perfect, is the best moment to be an independent musician in the history of the music business. I mean, it is. Say what you want about Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, whatever. These platforms exist for free. As an artist, you can upload your music to them for free. You have worldwide distribution. You don't need to go through a gatekeeper. You don't need to go through a cigar chomping record executive who's going to decide whether or not your music is good enough to be released in Japan or wherever. Those days are gone. So we absolutely, and social media, again, another free tool, not great in a lot of areas. Morally ambiguous in a lot of areas, but the trick is to try to find the way to use these tools to your advantage while you can, and we should certainly be looking for new paths, new approaches in order to compensate one another, to make sure that we're treated equitably, all that kind of stuff. But we really do have it pretty good in comparison to the way it used to be. And I'm really personally excited to be kind of an independent artist right here and now.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, we have some small artists or smaller artists at least with us currently, and everybody's completely agreeing with you. So, talking about the industrial bass movement, which many people call it currently, do you have any tips if somebody wants to start producing music like this that you might want to share with somebody?
You mean like technical musical tips or promotion tips?
All of it. Whatever you want to
All of
put
it.
out.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No. It's a long question. Or like the answer is long and it's complicated. So I try to think about how I can distill these answers into something that is, it's a sound bite isn't enough. But I think there's so many resources out there who can give you sort of an overview of how to get started in the music business. I mean, like all I could really say is write the best music that you can. Engage with your audience like you really care about them, which means actually care about them, and care about business. Because the problem is that so many artists make great music, but they don't actually talk to the people who consume it, and they don't want to learn about anything about the music industry or how to successfully run a business. And I know that we live in this world where the narrative, the story is that if you're an artist, you shouldn't have to worry about business. But I don't know how we got to this place where people are telling this story, because, if you think about a chef, who wants to open a restaurant, like if your buddy was a chef, right, and he made great food and he wanted to open a restaurant, but he doesn't want to care about the health codes. That's not his problem. He doesn't want to care about the accounting or anything like that. Doesn't matter. Or marketing? No, it doesn't matter. I'm just the artist. I just make the food, right? It's if your friend wanted to open a business like that, you would try to talk them out of this approach. I would hope, at least. So the way that I try to talk to new musicians is to encourage them to think about this like opening a restaurant or starting any other kind of business. Yeah, it's fun. Yes, it's art. But, you've also got to figure out all the unsexy stuff, because the unsexy stuff is actually the stuff that gets you paid. And usually if you trust somebody else to deal with the unsexy stuff, like a record label or a manager or something, they're just going to take all of your money and screw you over because you didn't know any better. So those would be sort of the bullet points for getting started in the music business, I think.
Okay. Sorry for popping out all that serious and hard questions.
No, look. The thing is that I love having these conversations. I think that they're really, really important. I feel sort of lucky to be in this position where I can offer advice and help to other musicians, because it's something that I really love doing. Like, I love helping out other musicians. But it's also hard because I think a lot of people don't want to hear it. I think a lot of people want some sort of easy answer where you just go, yeah, Spotify sucks, man. You just got to get a label who's going to do all this for you. And then you can, I don't know, then you can just make music and do drugs or whatever. I don't know, but it just doesn't work like that.
Okay, we got Dark Tunes with us in the chat, who is running a label, and he's a good friend of ours, and he strongly disagrees with what you're saying about labels. And I have to put out, he said most of the labels and most of the managers and so on. So don't be personally offended.
Look,
okay.
To be fair, like I think Dark Tunes is a great label, and I think that you really do make a concerted effort to take care of your artists in the best way possible. So I don't mean to say that like every label does this, because it's absolutely not the case. But you guys in Negative Gain, I think that you are really doing your best for your artists. But I think sort of a lot of these legacy labels, they're not so nice.
I mean, there are even movies telling this story, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we got a question from our fellow DJ on Rockbar. What was your first expectations of your musical future when Jason gave you the first CD to the DJs early back in the day? Did you expect this career to start off?
Yeah, well, if you'd asked me 20 years ago, I probably would have said that I would be like the biggest rock star in the world and I would be a multimillionaire, and that, yeah, life would just be super easy and awesome. Yeah, I really did believe that. And I think that was part of why I actually got, the attention of DJs, because I would march into those clubs with my demos and be like, yeah, this is going to be one of the most important demos you ever get, man. So I was really arrogant and awful. But yeah, Jason, that's funny that I don't know who mentioned that, but Jason was the guy who ran Bractoon Records back in the day. He actually started a record label in order to release my music because he believed in it so much, and he was actually flying out to Germany to do exactly what I was doing to all of the record label heads. Like, so he took a stack of my demos and he went to Wave Gothic Treffen and he handed out all of my demos to all of the labels. And, he is absolutely responsible for getting me to where I am now. So I'm super grateful for him.
Okay, you asked who put out that question, and I was told to tell you it's your favorite flight attendant.
Hi, Sasha.
Great. Okay, we have one more personal question, and it's totally free if you want to back off. What bands or groups do you listen to that have nothing to do with industrial or dark music? I don't know, maybe a guilty pleasure from Caro.
I don't believe in guilty pleasures. I think that you should just like what you like and own it. And I think that our music taste says so much about who we are. And the older I get, the more that I really sort of recognize this and believe this, because, I love pop music, and I love pop music from every era. So it doesn't matter if it's like modern pop music like Justin Bieber or Taylor Swift. It doesn't matter if it's like 80s pop music like Depeche Mode or Tiffany, or if it's like 50s pop music like doo-wop and stuff. Like, I listen to all of this stuff constantly, and I think that I probably have some of the most schizophrenic type of playlists, because it'll just go from like, hard dark synth to doo-wop or metal. Like, I love modern metalcore, I love Architects, I love Meshuggah and all that kind of stuff. So I like to keep it as eclectic as possible and never feel bad about any of it.
Best answer ever. Yeah, they were putting that out because we had a personal stream going on over Xmas, where myself and my DJ partner here on the channel, played our guilty pleasures. So this was fine.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. But I completely agree. There was a German hip-hop artist saying one day, everybody who is doing hip-hop and only listens to hip-hop is doing incest. And I completely agree. It gets boring no matter what you listen to at one point, I guess. So be who you are and put it out. And I can only completely agree. Yeah. Okay, what would you say have been the artist that influenced you most?
I think for better or worse, like in terms of, my sort of like artistic vision, I think Marilyn Manson was really a turning point for me in my teenage years. I mean, recently it's
Yeah.
Marilyn Manson's not yeah, but I also think that what made Marilyn Manson so special wasn't even just the man himself, it was all of the different people that worked with him to make that stuff. So you're talking about like Dave Ogilvy, Trent Reznor, Danny Lohner, Scott Patesky, like all of these artists really came together to make Marilyn Manson so much better than what the man is. So that's why I still feel okay kind of talking about Manson and the music, because Sean Bevan, man, like all of those people really made those records fantastic. And the diversity of David Bowie, Trent Reznor, I think is really doing a great job of sort of following in the Bowie footsteps of just being like a very honest artist who's aging with grace and basically does whatever he wants to do and doesn't really care if it upsets people. I think Trent Reznor, like Bowie, is probably kind of ahead of the curve and is thinking stuff like, "Yeah, you'll get it after I die," which is which I think is sad, but I think it's also important to not sort of be held to, you say, just like not being a slave to what people are expecting of you. You have to be willing to take risks. And so I think Trent Reznor more and more just really kind of sets the bar for where I would want to be as an artist. But musically, Michael Jackson, Led Zeppelin, Dave Matthews Band, Snoop Dogg, The Chronic by Dr. Dre was life-changing for me. See, Rammstein, Metal like Architects, really changing the game. And I think all this new dark synth stuff, they really are inspiring me to kind of make dance music again, because I got so bored with it the last few years. I felt like nothing new was happening. There was no real place to take new influences from. But man, these people, especially the French scene, they just came out guns blazing, and they're making amazing dance music. And I'm just like, oh man, I want to make something like that. So it's cool.
Okay. Another question from our fellow creator, MattHut3808. By the way, if you do not know him, personal shout out, sorry for that. You should check out MattHut's music if you do not know it already.
I do.
Great, I thought so. He asked any new remixes on the horizon, and did Dino get back to you about remixing Fear Factory?
No, unfortunately, Dino did not get back to me about remixing Fear Factory. But if you guys want to tweet at him, let him know that you all want an Aesthetic Perfection remix of Fear Factory. I will happily do it. I'll do it for no money. I don't care. That new record, Aggression Continuum, is badass. I'm currently working on a remix for Julian K. This is kind of like, right now I'm sort of getting back into the remix world, because for most of 2021 I didn't do any remixes at all. I just think the only one I did two. I did one for my buddy Jen Cab, who was a former Live member who kind of came back onto the scene. He resurrected his band from like 10 years ago and asked me for a remix, and I couldn't say no. And there was one other one that I did, and it's escaping me, but I also did the Lord of the Lost collaboration. I did Consume Hate for their last album, Priest, which was awesome.
Okay, you've been talking about remix culture. So, are you into producing remixes?
Yeah. I think it's so fun. The other remix I did was for Empty Streets. I did an Empty Streets remix.
Okay.
So I really like remixes because it takes so much of the pressure off of trying to write like the core of the song, like the bass. You just get to play with all the fun stuff like sound design and arrangement, and those are the things that I find come very easily and are just enjoyable. Trying to write like a really good song on your own, that's hard. But when you get to just like play with all your toys and make cool sounds and take an existing song and try to put your own spin on it, that's just fun. So I really do love remix culture. I love doing remixes, and I'm looking forward to doing more this year. So if you all tweet at Dino from Fear Factory, maybe we can make that happen.
Okay, so the follow-up question I wanted to put out goes kind of into that direction. So, would you say you love to put your style onto a song you remix, or would you say you try to improve, in quotation marks, the song to your liking?
I just try to let my intuition lead the way. I think I think it's a mistake to try to improve anything. I think taste is quite subjective, and what I like is not necessarily what another person likes. And I also recognize the fact that no matter whether or not I'm trying to do something intentionally, like intentionally make it sound like aesthetic perfection, it's just going to sound like aesthetic perfection anyways because I made it. So I don't even consider that part of the equation. I just try to follow my intuition. Usually I hear a song once and my brain goes, do that, that, and that. And then I'm like, okay. And it's a quite painless process. I should say it's fun.
Big Rose Summer just put out when will we too be having the next chat because they love it. Just had to put that there. And Jenna Vision put out she would love to see you doing a collaboration with Gary Newman. And I
yes,
agree that would be interesting.
I would also love to do a collaboration with Gary Newman. Unfortunately, I do not know Gary Newman, but I'm a big Gary Newman fan. The Replicas album was totally life-changing for me when I discovered that as a teenager. So, yeah, have Gary give me a call. I promise I'll pick up.
If I could, I would. What is your vision for the future talking about the music industry and the dark scene?
I think it would be arrogant of me to pretend like I know the way forward, because I don't. I'm just one person, and I think that a scene is a community, it's a collective. It's important for all of us to be a part of that conversation. I think everybody's tastes and opinions matter. I think if there was literally the only thing that I would wish would be that it would be more open to change, and that it would be more open to these types of conversations. My buddy Chris Harms posted on his Instagram a couple of months ago. He went to the beach with his family, and some people wrote him saying, "Oh, you shouldn't post that you're at the beach. That's not goth." Like, like this kind of thought process. I think we should get away from that and just be happy and be okay with being who we are. If you don't like the beach, that's cool. But don't shame other people for liking the beach. If you don't like Taylor Swift, that's cool, but don't shame other people who do. We should be as inclusive and open as we pretend to be.
Nice words. Very, very well put. But completely agreed. I think everybody should try to be happy with who they are, as long as they do not hurt anybody with it. And just let everybody else do the same. So
exactly.
During a little research and being a DJ for over 20 years, oh my gosh, I'm old. I discovered that you've been with Bruderschaft as well. Are you going to do any more collaborations like this?
I mean, I wasn't in Bruderschaft. I just did the one song with them. I actually haven't been in touch with those guys in a long time, but it was a really, really enjoyable experience. I really loved the song that we did, Dead Tomorrow. That was, oh my God, that must have been 13 years ago. Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. But I think Rex is a great guy. I think Bruderschaft is a great project. And, if he gave me a call, I'd pick up the phone, just like with Gary Newman and Fear Factory. Just give everybody my number. It's fine. I'll pick up.
Okay. So we are close to 8 p.m. here in Germany, and I do not want to steal you more time than you want to spend with us here. Do you have anything you want to put out to the people before we end this interview?
I just want to say that I'm super grateful to have been able to be doing this for as long as I have. I mean, we're coming up on the 22nd year of aesthetic perfection. Like, that's just mind blowing to me. And the fact that I still get to do this, the fact that people still care about what I do, the fact that people still want to have conversations like these with me and care about my stupid opinion is incredibly humbling, and I'm just grateful.
Thank you. Okay, everybody. So then we will now take the chance and wrap up the interview. From my side, thank you very much for taking your time, Daniel. And
My pleasure.
It was a big pleasure having you with us, and or everybody who is currently in the chat and listening to our interview. And I will be sorry. You have to send me the link. It's prohibited in the chat.
Ah, all right. I was sending my link. It's every link
Okay.
that I have.
1 second. Yeah, we have bot prevention of that.
That's smart. That's smart.
You wouldn't believe what it saves when.
Oh, I'm sure I can. I'm sure I can imagine.
I think you can. Yeah. Okay, so thank you so much for this, and I hope to keep in touch. I hope to see you live soon somewhere.
Yeah.
Maybe we can talk about an online concert soonish. We'll see.
I'm not really interested in doing a live concert just because I feel like part of the concert experience is being shoulder to shoulder and sweaty with all of the like-minded people. I feel like it's a very tribal thing that you can't recreate through a live stream. But I would do a DJ gig. I would do a DJ gig. Something to
We
think
should
about.
talk about that. And
All right.
you heard it here
Sounds
first.
good.
And as soon as travel is back to being, I say, risk-freer, we'll talk about this because you're not too far away from here.
Nah, just like 4 hours. It's not
Yeah,
too
something
bad.
like that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Cool.
great. Thank you for that. I'll get back to you. Everybody, this was Daniel Graves of Aesthetic Perfection. Have a great night. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll be in touch, I hope.
I hope so too. Take care, guys. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.